Hi, today I'm going to be presenting the paper Proceed with Care, Reimagining Home IoT Through a Care Perspective. So care has always been silently implicated in the way that design and HCI researchers have tried to understand the relationship that people have with their everyday things. But there's a greater need for a focus on the role that care and care labor plays in making and maintaining those relations. Fundamentally, because our principles are deeply imbricated in the way that we try to imagine and ultimately realize more responsible and equitable futures. We need careful ethical framing for how to design and evaluate these systems. So, in this paper, we present our inquiry of home dwellers' relationships to caring for their everyday things, what we call thingcare. We conducted a 6-month design ethnography with one participant, Fiona, and myself. This resulted in 4 themes. We then used those themes to co-speculate on a set of 4 IoT concepts in the form of animated GIFs that investigate the research question, what might care as a design consideration look like for home IoT? So I'll briefly present just one of the themes. I'm primarily going to focus on the implication for IoT that arose from this ethnographic and design work. So this theme, care liminality, tensions at world boundaries, describes the tensions and often ambivalences which arose when care unresolved or destabilized relations, when it revealed the unfinished qualities of things, laid bare obfuscated acts of care and care labor, and ultimately manifested in dialogues with things and environments. This theme led to the implication, how can home IoT be more like a rickety old chair? Care, as a feminist ethic, is concerned with questions of morality, but because it privileges relationality and responsiveness, it entails a situated and particular handling of questions around what's considered good and what isn't, rather than prescribing what is good universally. So this theme started to expose some of the situated modalities and temporalities that negotiated across worlds and negotiated across, at times, competing goods. And this leads us to ask, how might we reimagine home IoT if we designed with a more fluid, not just a more broad notion of what is good? Would home IoT begin to design for the good of things and world historically considered less deserving of care? Home IoT now is already reifying normative ideas about what is good through its processes and outcomes. One normative good that really pervades current visions of home IoT is that of efficiency. Almost anathema to this notion is an example of Fiona's 20-year relationship to renovating her rickety old chair. So not only is Fiona approaching this chair renovation in the slowest way possible, evaluating its efficiency is absolutely impossible without any ideal finished state. And this is something she has no interest in cultivating. That's not the point. So when we use a care perspective, we can start to see Fiona's relationship to her chair, not just as a challenge to this dominant IoT good, which has been critiqued in HCI, but as being specifically attentive to how different temporalities affect actual and perceived care labor. So it was many months into our ethnography when Fiona understood this really as a 20-year practice of care. So by designing with care liminality, might we start to challenge notions not just of what is good, but also when? And if we use a design frame or design frames that center relationality, might we knowingly be able to design at the intersection of labor and temporality, as well as many other competing, complementary, or shifting goods? I wish I had time to talk about the rest of the themes and all the other ideas in this paper, but I think what this work is really trying to do is to highlight how care can be used as a critical, but more importantly, a generative perspective to deal with the specificity of situated contexts, practices, temporalities, and stakeholders, but also how we might transcend them in an effort to trouble the enmeshed forces of power, knowledge, and labor that all too often go unseen, unvalued, and uncared for.